Did it age well? Well, this is a new series I'm trying out here. I stream occasionally here on YouTube, and if you were catching my last few streams, I've been doing well, not the entire Castlevania series, but most of the Castlevania console games. So this is going to be my incomplete list of what I think of the old Castlevania games if they aged well enough to compete with modern games. Meaning, a modern day gamer, let's say somebody who just hit college, hasn't really played the old games, who've only really played the new games like Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, Bloodstained, those kind of games. If they try to go back and play some of the old games as they were in that time, would it still be fun? Well, we're going to first start off with Castlevania here. Here, this is the OG game from about almost 40 years ago. So, there's been a lot of advancements. This is the granddaddy of gothic side-scrolling horror action games. This game influenced so many modern games. But, with 40 years of advancement, does it still hold up? Well, the first question is graphically, does it hold up? Well, seeing as how retro is kind of in, and there's so many games nowadays that are trying to do the old 16-bit, 8-bit kind of style of games. The question isn't really how many bits are in there, it's what you do with it. Simon Belland's animation, aggressive, determined, he feels like a hero, a badass going into combat. The level design, the way the interiors work, the monster design, the enemies you're fighting, they all have that gritty, gothic look to it. Aesthetically, this game sucks you in. The music, also, this keeps pushing you forward, making you want to continue fighting. It is an action game through and through, but there are some things that didn't really age well in my opinion. While the difficulty is still there, the combat is still strong, precise, uses skill. The control of your character, not so much. When you jump, you dedicate yourself to that jump. There is no double jump. There is no trying to weave in the middle of the air. You gotta make sure when you jump, you want it to jump and you're gonna make it. There is no leeway with your jumps. Not to mention, you get stuck on stairs a lot. Get off the stairs! Fucking doing? Pissing me off. When you're on the stairs, you are at your most vulnerable because you lose so much control when you're on those stairs. Additionally, you have limited lives. When you die, you lose a life, you return to the previous checkpoint. Lose all your lives, you continue at the beginning of the level. Not the game, but the level. You do have infinite continues, but there is no save feature. There is no password system, meaning you can play the game all the way through without having to worry about completely resetting, but it has to do it in one sitting. If you have to turn off the game, if you have to go away, if you have to reset at all, you're starting all over. Now I know, if you're playing the Castlevania collection, if you're playing on an emulator, you got save states. We're not talking about playing old games with modern tech. We're talking about playing games as they were back in the day to truly see if it aged well. So there are no save states in this situation. Now, with these negatives going against it, without these common modern day conveniences that we're also used to, does it hold up? In my opinion, I think it does. So we're going to keep Castlevania 1 right here. We're fine, but nothing special. Now this might upset some old school gamers, because this is such an influential game in video game history. Compared to all the conveniences we have, compared to all the advancements we had since then, if you're comparing this to modern games, it's still a fun game, but it's nothing special. Next up on the list, we got Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. Came out about 11 months after Castlevania 1. Not even a year. Close to it though. And now a lot of people like to think this is a bad game. Why is that? Well, it still has the same tight combat. It still has the fun monster design. It still has that gothic look and feel to it. The music's still there. But what about it gives it such a bad reputation? Well, it is cryptic. There was bad translation when this game came out, so a lot of the clues you get, a lot of it didn't make sense. And some of the clues you had to find are in hidden areas, making it extra cryptic. This is the kind of game where you needed a strategy guide for, or modern day, the internet. And there's also a lack of boss fights. There's only 3 boss fights. One of them you can completely skip and ignore. And they're nothing special. They're pretty easy. But when I was playing this game on stream, I gotta admit, the entire adventure style part of it, going back and forth, trying to figure out what you gotta do, while cryptic, I did have fun with it. And one thing this game does have, aside from the adventure part that the first game doesn't, well, it does have multiple endings. And it does have a password system. So you can put this game down and pick it right back up where you left without losing any progress. And it gives incentive to playing it multiple times just to see those different endings. But with those conveniences, with the admittedly bit of fun adventure, does it still stack up? Honestly, I'm gonna have to put that in the maybe category. I think they're still fun to be had, but what it lacks with really great boss fights which the first game had, it does get old fairly quickly. Even if you like to try to tease your brain and figure out all the hidden secrets in this game, as far as an action game goes, it's lacking severely. But it's still a little bit of fun, so that's why we're keeping it in the maybe section. Next up on the list, oh boy, the final game in the 8-bit era, Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse. Oh, I remember renting this game back in the day. I never beat it back in the day. Had a lot of fun with it, but, you know, it's a video store, you had to return it after, like, you know, second day. It was a pain, but I finally get to play it on stream. What this game does is it takes the great parts of Castlevania 1 with this stellar action, great boss design, enemy design, the platforming, and it takes the conveniences from Castlevania 2 with a password system and multiple endings. And it adds extra characters that you can play with, changing up the playstyle for each different playthrough. And you have branching paths after each level, so every playthrough could be a little bit different. So Dracula's Curse has a lot of replay value. It has the stellar combat. It has different play styles. It took all the great parts from both Castlevania 1 and 2 with none of the negatives. Well, still have stairs you gotta deal with. If you had to play one game out of these 3 games, definitely pick Dracula's Curse. Definitely holds up. Now, we're moving on. We are in the 16-bit era. On the Super Nintendo, we had Castlevania 4, or rather Super Castlevania 4. This is a reboot of the original Castlevania. And what does it do? What are the advancements aside from its really great and impressive graphics that you get on Super Nintendo? An increased amount of control. Not just with your whip, which lets you whip in all 8 directions, and with your controller with extra buttons, you have a dedicated button to your sub-weapons. You have a little bit of extra control on the stairs, which is, okay, you're still kind of stuck on the stairs, but a little bit more control on the stairs. You can jump onto the stairs actually in this one. But I will admit, there is one thing that it lacks to the original Castlevania, and that's the difficulty. Now this game is not incredibly easy, but it is a lot easier than the first game. The first game was punishing, but it does have a password system, it does have infinite continues, and the bosses aren't as brutal. So if you're looking for a challenge, you may not find it here, but in every other aspect, the incredible level design, with the rotating levels, the incredible control you have with your whip, being able to attack in any direction. I think this game does more than what a lot of modern games does these days with its control. So it's in my opinion, we're keeping it at the holds up great section. Next up, we have Dracula X Rondo of Blood. This was on the TurboGrafx 16 CD, this was on the PC Engine CD. Now I never had a PC Engine, never had a TurboGrafx 16 to begin with, a 101, but I never got it, let alone the CD system. And I was never able to play this. Now I know this game has been re-released on the PSP and I believe the PS4, the PSN store. I'm not positive on that. But in every forum I went to, everybody says you got to play the original PC Engine version. It is the best. Oh, and for that matter, never play the Super Nintendo version. It is inferior in every single way. I was able to pick this up. I got an analog dual specifically to play this game. I got the game. I love the camping and cutscene. I love the music. By far, this is the most badass Castlevania game I have ever played. And I'm not even being hyperbolic about that. You may not have the whip control that you had in Super Castlevania 4. But what you do have is a special crash system with your sub-weapons to have an extra ability. You have a second character with Maria when you unlock that have a completely different play style. You have secret paths you could take, so every playthrough you could unlock different paths. Not only that, the game saves itself so you don't need to start from the beginning if you want to unlock all the secret paths. You could just select the level you want. And personally, I will admit, Richter is one of my favorite Belmonts ever since I played the Castlevania Symphony of the Night way back in the day. And you got to start off with Richter. And FYI, this is a prequel to Symphony of the Night. And the graphic style, I think, is on par with a lot of the modern-day Castlevania-like clones or Metroidvania games we get nowadays. And the music, oh my god, the music is just incredible with the CD quality they have on the PC Engine. Amongst all the Castlevanias we have so far, this is the first one we're putting in the better than most modern games section. Play the PC Engine version if you can. If you can't, PSP is the next best thing. Maybe the PSN store. Now the last game in the 16-bit era, we have Castlevania Bloodlines. Now this game I did play way back in the day. I did finish this game back in the day. Like I rented it several times. My brother and I played this a lot and we beat it. What does Bloodlines have? Well, it has 2 playable characters. Guy with a whip, guy with a spear. 2 different playstyles, 2 different sets of controls with their weapons. The spear guy could attack in most directions on the ground, while the whip guy, he could attack in several directions in the air. Spear guy has a really big leap attack that can get you into areas that you can't do with a normal jump. whip guy, and swing from surface. That means you have two completely different playthroughs with different play styles with each of these characters. Graphically, it's a bit hit and miss, honestly. Some of the environments look incredible. Some of the characters and enemies, compared to Super Castlevania and Rondo of Blood, not so much. But one of the biggest downsides I'd say this game has is difficulty. Not only is it the most punishing game out of the three, it has limited continues. While it does have a password system, the password system keeps track of how many continues you have left. So if you get to a certain spot when you run out of continues and you have the password system and you have 1 life left, that's all you got. Not to mention, that's on normal difficulty. There's a hard mode you could unlock in this game. Now, if you like hard modes, if you want like punishing difficulty, out of these three, this is definitely the game to get. It has more playstyles than Super Castlevania, and it definitely has a higher difficulty amongst all of them. And I think it is a very solid game, but I don't think it's as good as Rondo of Blood, but it definitely holds up. Next, we're moving on to the 32-bit era. Now, Symphony of the Night is not what I played. I played the Sega Saturn version, Dracula X Nocturne in the Moonlight. But before we talk about Dracula X Nocturne in the Moonlight, I think I should tell you exactly how I got this game. This is a reproduction copy I got from SegaReplay.com. If you have a large library of Sega CD, Sega Saturn, and Dreamcast games that you want to preserve and have backup copies, definitely go to Sega Replays. They have a huge list of Sega CD, Sega Saturn, and Dreamcast games you can get reproduction copies of for preservation's sake. And if there's Japanese games that you've always wanted to play, but never had a chance to and want translations, you can also find them there too. Right now, they're running a Halloween special for 10% off. And remember to use code CHOPPYCREW to get an additional 10% off. Now, that's enough to plug. What were you talking about again? Right. Why did I play the Sega Saturn version? Well, I grew up playing the original Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation, and I completed. I 100%ed that game. I loved that game. But when I found out that the Sega Saturn version, which many would claim to be the inferior version because of the poor port, there have been patches, fan-made patches, to improve some of the limitations this game had. But that's not what I was really concerned about. What this game has is something you had to unlock in the original Castlevania Symphony of the Night. In Symphony of the Night, if you complete the Upside Down Castle and beat the game, you unlock Richter as a playable character to play the game again. But in the Sega Saturn version, you could pick Richter right from the beginning instead of just Alucard. Not only that, you also get to choose Maria, a grown-up version of Maria from Rondo of Blood in Symphony of the Night. So those are 3 characters you get to choose right off from the beginning. Now you don't get a story mode of Richter and Maria, but you get to play through the entire castle with their special moves. Playing the game with Alucard originally when I was playing Symphony of the Night was great back in the day. And I imagine it's still great. Being able to play with Richter, completely different playstyle, different crashes with each sub-weapons. The sub-weapons actually completely different with Richter in many cases. And then Maria with her magical attacks and special combo abilities definitely pushed this game far beyond what I felt when I originally played it with the PlayStation Symphony of the Night. Now, Symphony of the Night, I believe it still holds up, but if you had a chance to play the Sega Saturn version, I'd say it's better than most modern games. Now we're moving on from 32-bit to 64. With Castlevania, yeah, it's just Castlevania. People call it Castlevania 64 because it's on the Nintendo 64, but technically, it doesn't have 64 in the title. Now, when I was streaming this, some people were saying I should play the Legacy of whatever. I forget the full name. It is pretty much the updated version of this game, because this game has a lot of issues. I had a miserable time playing this game. I never played this game when it first came out. I never had an N64. My cousin did. I used to play on her N64, but she never had this game. So this was my first time playing this game, and it was miserable. Absolutely miserable. Now, I do know that there's some videos out there that say like, oh, this is underrated. It's overhated. I never actually watched those videos. I just seen the titles. Because after I streamed this, it just started showing up on my YouTube feed. It's not underrated. It's just rated. And it should be hated. Now, for the people who like this game, who try to defend it, I call it the Last Ninja effect. What's the Last Ninja? Way back in the day when I was playing on my Nintendo, renting games from the video store, there was this game called The Last Ninja. I like ninjas. I rented that game. That game was horrible. It had terrible, terrible controls, terrible combat, so cryptic in everything you had to do. It was a miserable experience. Years later, I find out that it has a very strong community. It actually won awards for being a really great game. How? Last Ninja was horrible. And then when I read up on it, I read the forums, I see what people liked about it. These people, they like bad games. They take bad game design as a challenge. They look at bad game design and figure out a way to overcome the bad game design. They see crypticness and they just beat their head against the wall until they just accidentally fall upon the right answer. There's groups of people that like games like that. They like just trying to overcome terrible design. And I think the people that liked, again, I didn't watch those videos, but I can only imagine the only reason they like or want to defend Castlevania 64 is because when they were playing it, they were able to overcome those terrible designs. Now, what's the terrible design I'm thinking about with Castlevania 64? Well, the camera is horrible. It has a soft lock-on, but not a hard lock-on. Keep in mind, this came out a couple months after Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and it didn't have a hard lock-on. The camera did not snap on whoever it is that you're going to attack. You could turn the camera completely around and not know who you're attacking. In fact, playing as the girl in this game, that was recommended. Her attacks will lock in and home in on the enemies. So most of the time when I'm fighting with her, I'm just running away, shooting energy balls behind me, assuming it's going to hit whatever enemy's behind me. I don't know if they're dead. I don't know if they're still chasing me. I'm just going to keep shooting homing lasers until it stops homing in on enemies. That's not fun. That's just trying to work with terrible design. When I'm fighting a boss with Schneider, I think is his name? Reinhard Schneider. I'm trying to throw daggers at the boss. Nope, daggers are locking in on like the little minion enemies. They don't want to do that. Can't really control that. Can't figure out how to lock. I need to take out all the minions first. The camera, the controls, both of these are just terrible. The level design is not bad, alright? The level design, not bad. Boss fights, maybe they could have been good, but the controls and the camera just make it all horrible. The game could have been good if it wasn't for the controls and the camera. This, maybe in the legacy of whatever, they fixed that, but that's not what I played. I played this. And with my experience, I say, don't bother. It is not worth it. This game aged horribly. Finally, we have Castlevania Lament of Innocence. Now, this game takes a lot of inspiration, I believe, from Devil May Cry in its combat. It is a very fun combat. You unlock new combos. It's very forgiving if it's a soft lock-on. It's not difficult to fight anything. It relies heavily on your own skill. And it's very easy to use, and the camera, for the most part, not always, works with you. There are a few instances where it's just kind of like not good. But mostly, it works out well. So moving from Castlevania 64, I felt like this was going to be a great game, a great pickup. Not so much. The biggest problem with Lament of Innocence is the level design. You're backtracking back and forth over and over again through the same corridors, through the same rooms. You're trying to find out where you gotta go with elevated areas you gotta try to jump onto that's hidden by its own level design. There were a few times I didn't even know I could go to an area that I was supposed to go to because it was blended in too well to the background. And when you get to different areas of the castle, some of them might be different because, well, this one has water on the floor. This one has some fireplaces on the side. But it's still the same hallways, the same rooms you're going into over and over and over again. The repetitiveness of this game was mind-numbing, and it was so disappointing because the combat felt so good. The combat was fun, it was exciting, but when you're going over the same levels over and over again and backtracking because you forgot an item, you need to go look for something else, there's a locked door, you need to go back and try to find what you're missing over and over and over again. It made it a really bad experience for me. But at least the combat was good. Could somebody have fun with this game? I think somebody can have fun with this game. If you have a walkthrough on your lap, just telling you where you gotta go so you don't keep backtracking. But it wasn't as miserable as Castlevania 64, so I'm sticking this on the maybe pile. Right next to Simon's Quest. It has some good things that could be fun, but there's some things that make it miserable. So, final recap, going from bottom to top. Castlevania 64? No, not worth playing nowadays. I don't even think you should bother trying. In the maybe section, Simon's Quest and Lament of Innocence. There's some fun to be had there, but the crypticness and the level design make it really difficult to fully enjoy it. In the fun but not special section, we have Castlevania 1. It's a solid game. It holds up. It holds up okay, but compared to what we have and all the advances we have nowadays, it's nothing really too special, but if you go back and play it, you can still have a good time. In the holds up great section, which I think anybody and everybody who likes side-scrolling gothic action games should go back to, Castlevania Dracula's Curse, Super Castlevania, and Castlevania Bloodlines. These definitely held up great, and I think anybody could have fun with this. And as far as games that still beat up modern day games, definitely Rondo of Blood, my all-time top favorite since doing this entire series, and Dracula X Nocturne in the Moonlight, or, for Westerners, Symphony of the Night. Well, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with my list? Are you angry with some of my decisions? Let me know in the comments. If you want to catch my stream, check out Choppy Crew Streams. I occasionally stream there, and in fact my next retro series is going to be on the Shinobi games. I do have a Streets of Rage series I did previously, but I don't have that review up yet. I will soon. And if there are any other old game series, old forgotten series that you think should be looked at, let me know. Till then, later.